I find this scientifically fascinating.
You're listening to KUCI Irvine.
Disengage this computer now.
Broadcasting at 88.9 FM.
Hello, computer.
And on the web at kuci.org.
The most reliable computer ever made.
And streaming through iTunes.
Don't expect any mercy during the Great Robot Wars.
Anteater Radio brought to you by machines. Returning to normal broadcast in 3, 2, 1.
The opinions and views expressed in this program do not reflect those of KUCI, its management, or the UC Board of Regents. To find out more about this talk show or other talk shows broadcasting on KUCI, log on to our website at kuci.org or check out the latest program guide.
Good morning, Irvine. This is G-Dog the American Dream, and this is Living the Dream. I am here with Naomi Sugie, and she is an associate professor of criminology, law, and society, and by courtesy, sociology. Sugie's research examines the consequences of incarceration and other forms of criminal justice contact for individuals and their families, with a particular focus on how the criminal justice system influences participation in the labor force, political systems, and other governmental institutions. Sugie approaches her research from a variety of methodological approaches, and she is particularly interested in the use of technology-assisted methods, for example, smartphones, to address traditional methodological difficulties for studying hard-to-reach and highly mobile groups. And her dissertation, Distributed Smartphones to Men Recently Released from Prison in Newark, New Jersey, and documented daily job search and employment experiences through real-time surveys. And currently, I believe you are working on another research project, and that's why we have, because this is relevant to what's happening right now in voting. So if you want to go ahead and just kind of take over and let all the listeners know what's going on, what you're doing, all the other stuff, I'm more than happy to listen with them.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much for having me and providing me with this opportunity to talk about this project. So, we're just days away from the election. This is a historic election for lots of reasons. And, if anything, this election has, the lead up to this election has shown us how important it is to get out the vote, to really bring people to the polls, make sure people vote. And one group of people that typically isn't really targeted to get out the vote is system impacted people. And when I say system impacted people, I mean people who are impacted by the criminal justice system in some way. So that could be their own involvement with the criminal justice system. It could be a friend or family member's involvement, or it could be that they come from a neighborhood or a community that is highly policed, or that has, where they're feeling a lot of the impact of our expanded carceral state. We know there's been a lot of research that suggests that system impacted people have very low voting rates, even though the majority of them are legally able to vote. I'm talking about voting rates in the single digits. So voting rates 8-9% turnout, as opposed to the general population, which is 55-56%. So this is a real problem, that people who are impacted by the criminal justice system are not having their voices heard at the ballot box. And some of the reason is due to misinformation, because there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of misinformation already, just for an average person, about how to vote, where to vote, who's eligible to vote, what you need to vote. But there's even more for people who are involved with the criminal justice system, because laws vary from state to state about who can vote, what type of record, what type of supervision prevents someone from voting. And the penalties for voting if you vote when you're not eligible, because, for instance, you were on parole supervision, the penalties are real. Like, there was a highly publicized case of someone in Texas who voted mistakenly and she went back to prison. So these stories circulate and create a climate of mistrust, fear, and disinformation about people's rights, legal rights to vote. So in this context, what we're trying to do right now is we are trying to basically get out the vote for system impacted people by encouraging them to sign up with our project, with our study. And if they sign up, they'll receive about 5 to 10 text messages with information about how to vote, where to vote, and also to be on, we're on call 24/7, although there may be some delay if you text at night, but we are on call to answer people's questions. So we had someone contact us a few days ago saying they haven't gotten their ballot yet and they're registered to vote. And everyone in California should have their ballot by now. So, trying to troubleshoot with people, we are on call. We are trying to do everything we can through text messaging to target this group of people who are considered low propensity voters. So they're not getting the sort of text messages and outreach that maybe people who have voted in the past are getting.
Right. And, can you sign someone else up? Because I'm just thinking from my own personal perspective, because I have an 8-year-old son. His mother and myself split. She is one of those low propensity voters. She perpetually says, it doesn't matter if I vote. It's not going to make a difference. I don't care. And, her views are, her political views are probably the antithesis to mine, but it would be nice if she participated in the voting. I suppose is it possible to sign people up who are not yourself? Or is that against the rules? And how can we sign up if we're inclined to sign up? Is there a website?
Yeah, so at this point, we have passed the voter registration deadline. So people are either registered to vote or they're not registered to vote. If they're not registered to vote, they can still vote in person through election day, including early voting places, but they need to register and to vote at the same time. And they need to be there themselves in person with certain forms of, you don't need an ID necessarily in California, but there is a list of documents that you need to bring with you if you are not registered and you want to vote in person. But if you are already registered, you will get a ballot sent to you in the mail. You should have already gotten it. And your ex-partner will need to fill it out and sign it herself.
Right. And I don't know, I kind of want to touch on that misinformation thing because there is actually a lot of misinformation. I remember when we were on campus, there would always be those people who were asking us to sign petitions. And I never wanted to stop and sign those petitions because I didn't know what it was about. And so every time they would approach me, I would just tell them, oh, I can't sign that. I'm a convicted felon. And so I could run away. And one guy actually stopped and said, actually, convicted felons can vote. And I was like, wait, what? And so, I mean, is that, I never bothered to follow up. Is that true? Is this part of the project? Are you attempting to reach out to convicted felons who do have the right to vote but don't know?
Yes, exactly. So there's so much misinformation out there, and it's complex. It's not clear who is legally eligible to vote and who is not, and it differs from place to place and it differs over time. So, for instance, in California, I should just say, over time, like the last 2 decades, over 20 states have changed their voting laws related to who can and cannot vote if they have a criminal record. And so in California, the vast majority of people who have records can vote. There is one group of people who people who are not incarcerated who are on state parole in California currently cannot vote. But if you're not on parole supervision, if you're not on state parole supervision, if you are on probation, for example, or you finished your parole supervision, or you have a record but you never were on supervision, all of those things, you can vote. And actually, this election is so important in California because there are 3 propositions on the ballot that are related to criminal justice laws. One of them, Prop 17, would give the legal right to vote to people who are on state parole supervision in California. So our project name is Free the Vote, which is, a kind of really like an inspiring movement that was not started by us, but is the idea that we need to dismantle the legal disenfranchisement of people who have records. And the reason why we also are adopting that, so for our website for this, is because it's both about getting people to turn out to vote for proposition, to get out to turn out to vote because of Proposition 17. I should say that this is actually a nonpartisan study, so we just are really important. We want people to turn out to vote. We don't care how they actually vote. But we do think, Proposition 17 is a really important proposition on the ballot. And, but we also are talking, the reason why we're called Free the Vote is also because we want to bring attention to the fact that it's not just legal disenfranchisement. It's not just the fact that there are laws that prevent people from voting legally, but there's also these other factors that prevent people from turning out, even if they're legally eligible to vote.
Right. And, there was also, those extremely punitive laws with regards to, voting incorrectly that you mentioned in Texas, right? I imagine that the punitive measures are pretty much universal across the board. Is that, can you speak to what the motivation behind that is and why it's so severe when, it could just be an honest mistake? Like, I don't understand why we would punish someone for so severely for making an honest mistake. So.
Yeah. I don't know what people's motivations are, but I can tell you that the ramifications of it, the consequences of punishing someone, sending them back to prison for 5 years for voting mistakenly, right? That is so severe. It's shocking to people who hear about this. And these stories circulate. So even though this particular story happened in Texas, Texas has different laws about who can vote, who can't vote. Even though it happened in Texas, those stories circulate and go to other places. That story is prevalent. You hear it a lot in California. And it creates a climate of fear. It dissuades people who wants to take the risk. Even if everyone's telling you, oh, that's not going to happen in California because California's rules are different, or, we've checked out your history and you are eligible to vote. If you have that sort of, if you think you're at risk for being punished in that way, why would you take the risk, right, of personally putting yourself out there and doing that? And so I do think, I don't know what the motivations are for punishing so severely, but there is a clear negative effect that suppresses the vote, that dissuades people from voting, not just in that state, but across the country.
Yeah, and also, it's kind of funny because I feel like there's like kind of a disproportionate administration of justice there, because I remember at a protest, for lack of a better term, one of my friends got into a heated match with someone, and she admitted to voting twice, but she was, still there getting in people's faces. So, I would imagine that there's some disproportionate administration of justice. So for your project, which is Free the Vote, could you let the listeners know if there's a website and how they can get involved or what they can do to help and get the message out?
Yeah, so anyone who's interested in if you are system impacted and you live in California, sign up at our website to receive about 5-6 text messages. We're not going to send a ton of text messages. At our website, it's www.freethevoteca.com. You can find out more information about the project at that website as well. And everyone who signs up is entered into a lottery. At the end of after the election, we're going to be raffling off $100 Amazon gift cards. So everyone who signs up will be entered to win one of those gift cards. We also are encouraging people, once you've signed up, to spread the word, to get your friends and family to also sign up. So if you get 5 other friends and family members to sign up and they list your name on the sign up sheet, we will give you 5 additional lottery entries to increase your chances to win that gift card 5-fold. And like I said, anyone who signs up, we will be on call through election day to answer any questions that you have through text message. And we also, I should say, because there is so much misinformation, just going back to our prior talk, because there's so much misinformation, the sorts of information that we give through text messaging is really directing people to the appropriate government resources, government information. We're not going to tell anybody something without showing that the California government is supporting this or says this, because we don't expect people just to believe us,
Right.
As researchers.
Right. And then also in one of the materials, it says we are focusing on California as a proof of concept for GOTV strategies for justice-involved groups nationwide. And successful criminal justice reform depends on the electoral change through the ballot box and participation of people with records. And so could you go ahead and could you just speak to that? Because that is probably a little bit more technical than a lot of the people who listen to this show are used to. So if you could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. That's a great question because, there's a lot of get out the vote campaigns right now, and we're doing this as a research study, and that's different from a lot of what's going on. And we think it's really important to do this as a research study because there is very little information out there, knowledge out there about how to increase voting propensity among low propensity voters and system impacted voters, particularly. We think it's so important to increase voting rates among system impacted people in the long term, not just November, 2020, but in, 2 years in the midterms and 4 more years, 8 more years. It's important to keep increasing voting rates among system impacted people because a lot of the movement for criminal justice reform these days is advocating for change through the ballot box, advocating for people to elect certain types of district attorneys, to pass certain types of propositions, to change our laws through the ballot box. And we think that is a good route, but it can only be successful if people who are actually system impacted also have a chance to voice their opinions, get their voice heard at the ballot box. And right now, the way it is, people who are not system impacted are going to be deciding who those district attorneys are, who those judges are, and what sorts of propositions are going to pass. And it's not just about this election, it's about creating a base of knowledge that will help inform future elections.
And so is this, is this strictly just UC Irvine, or are the other universities involved? And also, is this in collaboration with any other groups? Like to highlight everybody who's involved, so.
Yes, thank you. So this is definitely a collaborative volunteer effort. We actually spent the last year trying to raise money from the traditional research funders, and we were not successful, which I was really surprised about. But the feedback we got was just a lot of skepticism about whether people would even sign up, and low propensity voters. What's the point of trying to engage them? Which was for us, for our team, which was more motivating to say we need to do something. If we can't even get the funders on board, like we need to show a proof of concept. So this is a collaborative volunteer effort by UC Irvine students and myself, faculty, along with graduate students at Stanford. And our main community partner is Megan Medlin, who is a prominent person in the reentry world in Orange County. And we have also been working with literally dozens of community organizations throughout California to try to spread the word. And we are so grateful to all of these organizations who are putting the word out at their listservs and on their social media pages, especially in this COVID environment. There's really not a lot of in-person ways that we can try to get the word out. So we are so thankful for all of the community groups that are supporting this. There also are faculty at other California-based colleges and universities that are also trying to get the word out to their students. So please help us spread the word. And this is open to anybody who lives in California. Anyone who lives in California and is system impacted can sign up and encourage others to sign up as well.
All right, well, thank you so much. Again, that website for your project is freethevoteca.com. Thank you so much, Dr. Sugie, for being here with us and telling me about this project. I hope this is incredibly successful. So
thank you so much. Thanks so much for the opportunity to talk to you about it. Take good care.
Thanks, you too. And I'm going to...
The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of KUCI, its management, or the UC Board of Regents. For more information, go to kuci.org or follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram.
Yeah, we need some tunage for this. Presets, use the presets. Oh, come on, dude, your whole life is preset. Try something new.
Welcome to KUCI Irvine, your escape from the ordinary.
88.9 FM, KUCI.org.